I'm going to break down a few of the most essential items you need in your bug out bag, and probably a few you weren't even thinking of. Now, you have two basic styles of bug out bag. You got your gray man style bag, and then your more traditional bag. The gray man bag is designed to be more discreet, to lay low, blend into the crowd, not stand out like a sore thumb. And because of this, you're going to have less items. Now, the more traditional bag is going to be more designed for longer periods of time, meaning you're carrying more gear and typically have that military tactical look or even camo style look, if that makes sense. Each have their place, but the first question you should be asking yourself is, what's my environment going to look like? And by that, I'm meaning your home, your workplace, or wherever else you find yourself during the week most of the time. Are you in the mountains of Montana, the beaches of Thailand, or the concrete jungle of New York? Location is going to determine a lot here, and it's going to be key that you know what you're up against. For example, if you live in Los Angeles and you want to go the full camo tactical look, you got all the gear from Cabela's where you got that on the backpack, your pants, your shirt, all of it is decked out, and it is of time of need, and people are seeing you walk down the street when they don't have any food or water, guess what? You just became a target. Versus if you were in the heart of LA, but you have more of a gray man pack, which is, your everyday looking backpack, you aren't standing out at all and you're walking down the street, nobody's looking at you, nobody notices. Same as if you were in the northern part of Idaho, if you're wearing a camel backpack and a camel shirt and camel pants, people probably just think you're going to a wedding. I think you get what I'm saying here. So now that we've determined kind of what your environment is around you, let's jump into our first category, water. So what does your water situation look like currently, or what's around you? Are you around lakes and rivers constantly where if the grid shuts down, you have access to that every day, all day? Or are you more in the city life where if everything shuts down, whatever you have in your household is what you have to work with? If you got a lot of water access around you, then going more with a purifier, which is going to be a lot lighter and easier to carry, is going to make more sense. But if you're, like I said, in the city and you have no access to water, then I would go with more the camel pack style bag where you have access to it directly and have it to work off of if that were to happen. Where I'm located, I have a little bit of both, but I prefer having the purifier straw that you see on the screen because I can access that anywhere. And I also have a little bit of a camel pack as well, just so I'm kind of a mix between the two. It's going to be a little heavier, but again, personal choice. So you choose which one makes most sense for you. So now that we've determined your water situation, let's jump into food. So if the day comes where you need this bag, let's just assume that most grocery stores, gas stations, etc. are all shut down and have been raided, and you're on your own when it comes to food. Now we got to remember that you want to keep this bag as light as possible, but at the same time find an energy source that has a high enough calorie intake that will make a difference, especially if you're on the go. Now, personally, I love these high calorie bars. They're easy to store in your bag, they're easy to eat, and they're tasty enough to make a difference. Some people prefer the MREs, the meals ready to eat. I think I would look at both of them personally, try out a few of them, see which ones you like best and which one are easiest to store. Personally, like I said, I love one or two of these bad boys in my bag, ready to go for me. The second one for the meal section, if we will, or the food section, I like the idea of having a 5-hour energy bottle in my bag. Pretty self-explanatory, but if you're moving and nonstop and not in a position to take an 8-hour sleep or, and you need that extra boost of energy just to get to where you're going, this is where that would come into hand. I don't see this one on a lot of lists, but to me it makes sense. Let's talk about kind of your shelter situation. Same reason you have a roof over your head, having a source of shelter will be essential, especially if you're fighting against the climate. Now, personally, I would choose a tent over anything if you can, but again, this is going to be one of those bigger items in your bug out bag and not always ideal, especially if you're trying to conceal things. So if you can, get one that's small and light. They make plenty of them out there that do. I also prefer a Bivi sack, kind of a tent style sleeping bag, if you will. They're comfy to me. I like them. Some people it's too claustrophobic. And if you're thinking, okay, tent's a little too extreme for me, I need something a little more simple, then honestly just going for a poncho style jacket, something that is waterproof from rain and snow, etc. Or literally even just bringing a couple trash bags, cutting a hole in it, putting it over you, that will get the job done. So as simple as you want or as extreme you want, I think it really depends on the weight and the amount of space that it takes up in your bag. Another thing I would consider when it comes to shelter protection, against the climates is some kind of blanket. Now you can get some wool style blankets, but again, they're a little heavier, they're a little larger. I personally have one of the Mylar style blankets that are more thermal and kind of for more emergency situations, if you will. I love them. I got a couple of those in my bag. Easy to store, super lightweight, and will get the job done if needed. And just a quick reminder, guys, subscribe and like this if you like content like this. I'd love to put more out there for you. And I got all the links down in the description if you need to add some of these to your bag. Let's jump into the next one, which is protection. Now, let's not beat around the bush here. When a bug out bag is going to be required, relying on government officials or anybody kind of in that position, if you will, is going to be a long shot. You need to be able to be smart, move tactically, and be in a position to protect yourself and those around you if it comes to that. You know as well as I do that danger typically doesn't like to introduce itself from a mile away. Typically it happens right in front of you, split second. So regardless of what your desired choice is on this list, I would strongly suggest that you get proper training around these items and practice it to the point where it becomes second nature, because an honest assessment of your time of training will be made of you in those moments. So just keep that in mind as we go through this. So with that being said, let's talk firearms real quick. Personally, because I train with it and I feel like I'm more accurate with it, I like to carry a Glock 19 as my concealed carry. Again, very personal choice. I don't know if I'll see that too often on somebody's bug out list, but again, whatever you train with, whatever you're comfortable with, you should use. There's definitely a ton of smaller options and easier to conceal options out there. Personally, I like the Ruger LCP or the Springfield 911. If you're not familiar with guns or would still like some help around this, I personally would go to your local gun store and ask them what they would recommend. You know, somebody that's really a specialist here. So Again, a lot of this is going to be your determination based on your comfortability, and try out a few things. If you're getting all these items and just throwing it in a bag and assuming you're going to be okay, personally, I believe you're approaching it wrong. I think you should know exactly what's in your bag, why they're in your bag, and you train with what's in your bag. So probably the most popular firearm for a bug out bag that I see is going to be a lot lighter, both in the firearm itself and the ammo, and which is a 22. It is amazing in this realm, and honestly, I'll probably end up switching it down the line, but with that said, they come in all different sizes and shapes, both in the rifle form and the pistol, and a big part of the ammo is it's so light that you can have a good amount compared to, say, the 9mm, like the Glock that I carry, which adds up very quickly. You can almost double, triple the amount of ammo you have for the same weight. They do make collapsible rifles that can fit into bags as well, like the Ruger 22 Takedown, which are pretty slick if you ask me. They're pretty cool, but again, that does take up a lot of space in your bag, so obviously consider that as you approach this. So let's talk about knives real quick. Some people like smaller, some people like larger. Personally, I like something that's a little bit smaller and a tactical kind of route, which I have a Daniel Defense folding pocket knife. Like I said, it's super light, super sharp, and can be used both for that day-to-day task but also for self-defense if needed. Some people kind of prefer that bigger deer hunting knife, if you will. To me, it feels a little unnecessary, especially if I have other forms of protection. But again, I would try out a few different ones, look out what they have out there and see which one you like best. But a knife is definitely something I would have in your bug out bag. So maybe you're not so comfortable with a firearm or a knife as your go-to protection, which I understand if it's not familiar to you. Most people's next step is going to go to a pepper spray, type approach. I like it if you have nothing else, but the problem with pepper spray is, in order to be very effective, you got to be super close and miss yourself, and half the time when you're spraying, it's either too far away and it's not effective, or it's going to get in your eyes, it's just messy, etc. If you're going to go with some kind of pepper spray, personally I would go with a bear spray. You can shoot it from double, triple the distance that you would with the regular pepper spray, and it's a lot more effective, and it's going to be easier to kind of aim. Plus they make holsters and all sorts of stuff that you can have, whether it's on your bag, on your belt, etc. So look into pepper spray, and again, if you get some, test it out, see what you think of it. Obviously not on yourself, but shoot it out in the woods or whatever and just practice. Okay, so let's talk about kind of your first aid go-tos. So if I was going to go light, I would have your few basic band-aids, maybe some laceration strips, some painkillers, some gauze, and definitely a tourniquet. They have first aid kits that are even larger and have everything you need in them. But again, size is going to be the big thing when it comes to first aid. Personally, I'd go with kind of the essentials that cover the basic ones and add on if you need to. So we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but let's talk about clothing. Now this can go a few ways. The clothing you choose can be very specific on the climate you're in. Personally, I'd have a summer one and a winter one, and then obviously just switch them out the time of year. If it's getting a little closer to fall, get your winter bag out. If it's getting closer to spring, have your winter one ready to go so that you're not thinking twice about it. Now, most people aren't thinking necessarily about clothing. They're just thinking about the bag themselves. Personally, I like to have the shirt, the pants, the socks, the shoes near my bag so that if I can switch them out. You know, last thing you want to do is be wearing a pair of Vans in the dead heart of winter. That's just a mixture of bad life choices right there. If you're dealing with more rain and snow, then I would personally go with a boot that is waterproof or water resistant, because if you're needing to walk a long distance in wet shoes, that will be a problem quicker than you realize for a number of reasons. Now let's say it's hot and the main issue is going to be heat and the sun, then having something that is a little lighter, a little breezier, you know, but at the same time is going to be resilient. Then personally, I like going with kind of a Merrell or a Solomon type shoe. They make a lot of options both for winter and summer. So I would go there, take a look at them, see what you like. And this is the most important thing. Buy something and then train in it. I would train in those shoes so they get used to your footing. If you've ever done a marathon, you don't buy a brand new pair of running shoes the day before a marathon. You got to break them in. So do that with these shoes. I'd also have some kind of hat if you're in a hot climate, something, you know, a full brim hat, because if you're outside all day long, the last thing you want to be dealing with is the sun and heat stroke or a sunburn, when that's something you can easily avoid. Now, this is one that I don't see typically on list, and it is a lifesaver in my opinion, and I learned it the hard way years ago in Boy Scouts. I was out on a Boy Scout camp and I brought one pair of socks, and we were there for a few days, and the first day I got them wet and muddy and they became harder than a rock after a day or two. So bringing a extra pair of socks, I promise you, will be life-changing for you if you need them. I love me some Darn Tough socks. They're guaranteed for life. They're a smart wool, fit great, and come with a multiple thickness, and they're just super durable. I've also heard of U.S. Special Forces using scuba socks for extra padding and to keep themselves even more waterproof. Personally, I haven't tried this one myself, but I mean, I would assume they know what they're talking about, so it's something I definitely will try in the future. So let's talk about the next one that I don't see a lot, which is documents. Most people don't really think about this one. I don't see it on a lot of lists, but I think it can be super, super useful in the future. And it's one of those things that I'd rather have it than not. Having documents like your birth certificates or social security or passports, driver's license, maps, you name it, in a sealed away waterproof bag would be something that you wouldn't typically think about, but would come in handy so much if you need it in the future. I mean, literally any kind of document that would be important to you, especially like say phone numbers, addresses, insurance or medical information. I mean, you get it. Also having, let's say $100 to $200 in small bills, $5, $10, $20 could also be something that could come in handy later, whether it's trading purposes or purchasing items along the line if you need it. And again, they take up no space. They weigh nothing at all. I would 100% have both of these in your bag. Another category to consider is more like your tools, your kind of random items, if you will. I do like a kind of a survival cord. This can be used in a number of ways, whether it's shelter, a fishing line, literally even just to suspend food from animals as you sleep. Another one I like is duct tape. Duct tape can be used in so many ways. I think it's one that is universal, but instead of carrying a big old traditional roll, get one of these micro rolls that you can put into your pocket of your bag. And again, it's a lifesaver if needed. It can be used in so many different ways. Another one that is super light and takes up no room, and we already kind of talked about it, but a trash bag. Trash bags can be used, like we talked about, as a poncho or a tent in different scenarios. But it can also carry and store items. It can also be used as a rain collector. Again, like duct tape and like the cord, multi-use. Now, another item is going to be a multi-tool. This can be a replacement for your knife, but the power's in the name on this one. So many different uses. It is worth the space needed in your bag. So let's talk about a fire starter. Some people like matches. Some people like the strike type tool. Personally, I like a couple small, big lighters. They're super lightweight. They're easy to use. The negative of these is there's obviously a finite amount of fuel that you have to use, but having two of them in my bag, I don't plan on using it forever, are usually a lot easier to use than a striker or matches, especially if it rains. Now, this is going to be one of those ones that you would wish you had it if you don't, but having some kind of wipes or toiletries is going to be both multi-useful, but also just a lot more convenient than going the old traditional leaf route, if you will. Now, let's not forget about one of the most important items, which is a source of light. Whether it's a headlamp or flashlight, personally, I like a flashlight. The one I got is an Mallet LD70, does really well. It's small, it's lightweight, and is just super bright. Personally, I like this one myself. I'll have the link down in the description if you'd like to add this one to your bag as well. And let me know down in the comments, did I miss anything? What would you add? Is there anything on my list that you would definitely not add to yours? Let me know down below, and don't forget to subscribe and like, and I'll see you on the next one. Hey, wait, before you go, if you're in the market of a greenhouse, I would strongly recommend checking out Homestead Supplier's greenhouse kits. They're actually super durable, easy to assemble, and they look awesome compared to a lot of others on the market. If this is something that would be valuable on your homestead or your personal yard, I put the link down below. Go take a look, see what you think.